Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's session, I'm going to give lecture of the first prose in the first unit of DGVC's second semester Foundation English. This is the legacy of Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru. It was written by Shashi Tharoor. Shashi Tharoor is a politician, a writer, he also a public intellectual who served as a member of parliament of Lok Sabha from Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala, and he wrote more than 100 articles. Of course, he authored around 23 works of books, fiction, non-fiction, and he was born in London but raised in India. He worked across the world. He graduated from St. Stephen College, Delhi in 1975. He received his doctorate in international relations and affairs from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. At the age of 22nd, the youngest person at the time to receive such a honor from the Fletcher School. Around 30 years, he served as a peacekeeper, refugee worker, and administrator at the highest level, and also served under Secretary General during Kofi Annan's leadership of organization. He gave the prose called The Legacy of Gandhi and Nehru. In this prose, he talks about the perseverance of Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru. So he opens the story like the 20th century is a tumultuous century because this is the century which brought so many changes, and this century had experienced huge wars, like 2 world wars happened in this century, and so many disputes happened, and even modernization happened in this. So he called this century as the tumultuous century. And in this century, there are so many leaders, remarkable leaders emerged in this century. But India was unique since we got a pair like Mahatma Gandhi and his protege Nehru. We all know that Gandhi is an idealistic, of course, determined. He was like a saint as well as a war politician, best crossbreeds. He knows how to manage to distill the qualities of both. Like that, Nehru was moody, an idealistic intellectual. He felt almost a mystical empathy for the toiling peasant masses. He is an aristocrat and of course accustomed to privilege. He had passionate socialist convictions, an anglicized product of Harrow and Cambridge, who spent over 10 years in British jail. During the life of Gandhi, the religion flowed into politics. Gandhi was an extraordinary leader of the world's first successful non-violent movement for independence from colonial rule, which brought the attention of many leaders from other countries, like Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela. They got inspired through the non-violence movement of Gandhi. At the same time, he was a philosopher who was constantly seeking to live out his own ideas. He wrote his autobiography, The Story of My Experiments with Truth, in which he explained a lot about the truth. Shashi Tharoor said, the word truth, for which even a dictionary will fail to find the deep meaning, but Gandhi gave it. The truth of Gandhi, which emerged from his convictions, which means Gandhi coined the expression satyagraha, which means literally holding on to truth, or he variously described it truth force, love force, or soul force. He disliked the English term passive resistance because satyagraha required the activism, not passivity. The passivity which make others to suffer, whereas the activism suffers oneself. You have to be prepared actively to be suffer for truth. Only then you'll be fit to be joined in the satyagraha. So because of satyagraha, Nehru started follow Gandhi. Gandhi believed that the self-government will never reach the achievement by the resolution passed by the self-government. So for him, self-government had to involve the empowerment of masses, and the upper classes were started clamoring for home rule. This position didn't go over well with India's political class, which consisted those days largely of Maharajas, lawyers, men of men who discussed in English and demanded the rights of Englishmen. In order to give them a lesson, Mahatma Gandhi started live a simple life, almost like poverty in an ashram. He started travel in a 3rd class of railway compartment and started campaigning against untouchability and child marriage, poor sanitation, and started preaching an electric side of virtues from abstinence to a waving of khadi. In the year of 1919, British government has passed the Rowlatt Act. They are suspending the rights of defendants in sedition trials. The Jawaharlal Nehru became a serious follower of Gandhi and signing the Satyagraha pledge. Gandhiji helped Nehru to become the leader of Indian National Congress in the year 1929, just 2 months before his 40th birthday. When Nehru was guided by Gandhi to the political pinnacle, he proved the inspirational campaigner as a president of the party, electrifying the nation with his speeches and tireless level. After the assassination of Gandhi, Nehru was assumed to be untrammeled power, but he didn't. Instead, Nehru spent a political lifetime trying to instill the habits of democracy in his people, and a disdain for dictators and respect for the parliamentary procedures. He understood that when there is a opponent party is strong, there will be proper rule in the country, in which he believed. So he must be checked. He wrote for himself, said we want no Caesar. And instead, he practices when challenged within his own party was to offer his resignation. As a prime minister, he started writing letters regularly to the chief minister of the states and started explaining about his policies and seeking the feedback from the chief ministers of the states. Nehru subjected himself and his government to cross-examination in parliament by a small, fractious but undoubtedly. At the age of 74, in the year 1964, Nehru was died. Just 5 days before, Nehru had told the press conference in reply to a question about whether he should not settle the issue of successor in his own lifetime. He said, "My life is not coming to an end so soon." When he died against his own will, he quotes the lines of Robert Frost's line, "The immortal lines were found on his bedside table. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have a promise to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep." The legacy of the two men marked India's 20th century. While the world was disintegrating into fascism, violence, war, Gandhi taught the virtues of truth, non-violence and peace. He destroyed the credibility of colonialism. The democratic institution building, a staunch pan-India secularism, socialist economist at home, and a foreign policy of non-alignment were all integral to a vision of Indianness that sustained the nation for decades. That is the legacy of Gandhi and Nehru. That is the principal pillars of Nehru's legacy. Well, that's it. The lesson called The Legacy of Gandhi and Nehru.